Hello, and welcome to Strategic Leadership with Paul Gilbert. In today's episode, we are going to focus on innovation. We're going to answer a couple of questions. One is why to innovate, and the other one is how to innovate in a specific way. And specifically, we're going to be looking at blue ocean strategy. First, let's focus on the why. Why do we need to innovate in whatever enterprise we are engaged in? When you look at the organizational life cycle, an organization starts, it's very focused on its customers and its services that it's providing, and then it matures, and as it grows further in its age and size and everything else, it becomes less focused on the exterior world, the markets that you're in, the customers that are out there. It becomes more internally focused. The interesting dynamic of that is that many large organizations do not see the need for change and are the last ones to embody the innovation. And often it's the smaller, newer startup organizations that innovate. Now, it absolutely doesn't have to be that way. That's just the way it is if you're not being proactive about innovation. So today we're going to be looking specifically at a book that was written by W.J. Kim and Renee Mauborgne. And that book is Blue Ocean Strategy. So when this book came out, it was quite a revelation just in itself, because it looked at innovation and a very specific kind of innovation that is pretty much the envy of anyone in any kind of market out there. With Blue Ocean Strategy, you are creating your own market, one that didn't exist before and one that you own. The idea is to create, not to compete. One of the key things in creating this new and original market for yourself is that you are creating what they call a value innovation. And if you have two inverted triangles that overlap in the middle, the top one, which is inverted and points down to the bottom, is cost. So you're trying to go low cost. And then the bottom one, which points up and overlaps, is called buyer value. So without the graphics, just think about being told that you want to create something that is valued more and costs less. For many people, they would look at that initially and say, well, that's just impossible. You can't be higher value and lower cost. But in truth, you really can, because the key is value. Value is subjective. Cost is completely objective. Value is in the mind of the customer, and that is completely subjective. So when you can find that spot where the customer thinks it's of higher value, but it's actually lower cost, you have created a magical space that you would like to be in. Blue Ocean Strategy, I think, is best described and studied with examples. So probably everyone out there is familiar with yellowtail wine. The interesting thing about yellowtail wine is it actually wasn't a brand that came out of Australia in terms of being a brand that was popular there. It was an Australian brand, but it was created for the US market specifically. And it was created in 2001. And today, it is one of the top wine brands globally in the world. So how did they do that? They came at it with an interesting revelation. And the heart of most blue ocean strategies is a revelation about the customer. So they realized that the US market was basically a beer market, that some people drank wine, but the majority of people were consuming beer because it was easy. You knew exactly what to do with it. It was non-pretentious. Basically, people were scared off of wine because of the rules. You have to pair wine, a certain kind of wine, with a certain kind of food. You didn't want to buy a wine if you didn't know it was going to be okay and you didn't really know what to do with it. So on every bottle of yellowtail wine, there is a tagline under the name of the wine. And it says something to the effect of, enjoy with a Sunday roast, family and friends. Enjoy with a steak in front of a roaring fire. Enjoy with Asian cuisine and some juicy gossip. So in all of those taglines, and there are many others of a similar note, they are first of all telling you how to pair the wine with foods, which was one of the reasons that people didn't buy more wine, is they just weren't sure what to do with it. And then the second thing is very appealing, which is they are painting a picture for you that you can step into. You are there with your friends, you're in front of a roaring fire, you're hearing great gossip. They are painting a picture of a social gathering, and you want to be there in the middle of it. And you can be with your bottle of Yellowtail wine. So they really did accomplish a number of interesting things with this simple tagline. They also, it's interesting to note the games they didn't choose to play. Most wines, whether premium or budget wines, have all tried to compete on the same scale. They want it to be aged a certain amount of time, maybe in a French oak barrel or something of that nature. But they want it to have a long history and really be sort of steeped in this tradition of winemaking. Yellowtail doesn't do any of that. Their wine isn't aged in any oak barrels in any place. It's made in a stainless steel barrel, and it is simple to pick out, and it is easy to drink, and it's sort of fun and adventuresome. And those are all things that the rest of the wine industry have not been trying to do. So they took fermented grape juice, which has been around for millions of years. They packaged it in a very different way with insights into the customer. And because of those insights, they were able to create their own market. So again, getting back to that value innovation, they did not try to be the most expensive wine. They did not try to compete with the premium wines or even the budget wines on all the areas that they were trying to compete on. Basically, in strategy, you want to move away from the conventional wisdom. You want to do your own thing in your own way and create your own market. And they did that through focusing on things that had never been focused on before. So let me give you another example. And this one is not from the Blue Ocean Strategy book, but gosh, it really should be next time it comes out. This one is a Blue Ocean Strategy, clearly, that was implemented by Nova Parks over the last 10 years. So Nova Parks is this regional park agency in the Northern Virginia area that I'm associated with and am the executive director of. And we have 5 water parks. In water parks, you have your big fancy water parks with lots of slides and lots of features. And we have one of those that's quite large, has many slides, has a big wave pool. And that's traditionally how water parks compete with each other. They compete on big features. And we also had several other water parks that were very large pools that had been created, but they really weren't enough to compete as big water parks. And essentially what they were competing against were community pools. And in this day and age, most residential communities are built with community pools. So there isn't as much drive to go somewhere else to just be in a flat water pool where you can just swim, basically. So you need something more to attract people. In 2005, 2006, we actually were considering closing one of these pools. It was Pohick Bay Regional Park, and they had a large pool that was put way back in the park where it has no street traffic. So you really had to know about it to go there. And we were losing money every year just by opening it because the attendance at that pool, I'll call it, had been declining for years and years and years. We could simply close the doors and make more money than having the doors open. Instead, we thought about doing a Blue Ocean Strategy. And we were forced to do so because we didn't have the money to do the traditional route of building a big water park with lots of big features. And what we created was something called Pirates Cove Water Park. So we put in some new features, but the main thing that we did was theme the whole thing from the beginning to the middle to the end. And you get there, and on the side of the building facing you, we made the entire building look like a giant pirate ship. We had our maintenance folks build these fake cannons that were mounted on the side of the building. And then we hired someone to paint a mural along the side of it. And then we put in a big mast and sail and crow's nest with a pirate up there looking out of a spyglass. And we created this entire environment so that then when you walked in, we had nets and sails and life-size pirates hanging from the ceiling with knives in their mouths, and created the pirate theming throughout the entire facility. We had signs that talked about, pirate history, and we all created pirate names while we were working on this project. And we had probably more fun than we really, are supposed to have. But it was a great deal of fun putting this together. And the fundamental insight in this is an insight into the customer. So who is the customer of a water park? Well, you might think the customer is the parent who takes the family to the water park and actually pays for them to come in and buys them food and other things. The real customer of a water park are children from about the age of 3 to 10. So sort of focus on elementary school children. That is the age of imagination. And what we did is create an imagination environment. We just worked the theming throughout, and we tapped into this sense of adventure and sense of mystery with pirates that has always been there. For as long as there have been pirates, people have been fascinated with them. The end result was we created a water park that has been tremendously popular. And we didn't compete on the most expensive features. Theming has been front and center. We did this renovation in 2008. By 2009, our revenues had shot up, and they continued to go up and up and up every year since then. And the expenses are relatively fixed. They don't change a great deal with how many people are coming in, but we created a tremendous success there by thinking about the customer in a new way and creating a new market. So now, if you want to go to the pirate themed water park, well, that's ours. If you want to go to any other water park, you can do that too. But we own that identity in our region. So there are so many different ways that you can do this, but it really requires thinking about your market, thinking about what you do that is of high expense and what you do that is of high value to the customer, and realizing that those two things may not be the same things at all. And when you realize that, and you can figure out how to make something of high value that is not necessarily of high expense, and that is unique enough to create your own market, then you've done a blue ocean strategy. So I think you can apply this to any field. And I think it's imperative to use innovation. This is one theory and method of innovation, but without innovation, organizations, their products, services, whatever they offer, will get stale and they will go into decline. So the reason we innovate is that we want to provide our customers, our public, our constituencies the very best. And to do that, we need to be original. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode. There is a lot more content just like this on the Strategic Leadership Podcast. So I'd really encourage you to go on to whatever podcast channel you want to, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Google, whichever one you want. Look for Strategic Leadership and join us there. We have all the same content, but in a longer format, more detailed, a lot more information. I hope you join us there. Please tell your friends about it. Please like, subscribe, do all those things, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.